Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and new set. Probably will not be the last version. And it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Look, I don't know. I was thinking this week was going to wind up a little busier than it was. Maybe it's just the suspicion heading off the holiday weekend, which is why this episode's a bit later than usual, or thinking that certain album impacts could have more resonance, or even just impact the Hot 100 at all. But either way, with the firestorm that is Sabrina Carpenter dropping next week, I might as well take the quieter moment as a welcome breather, even if this episode is actually busier than the last couple weeks. And nowhere has any impact had less resonance than in our top 10, where for another week Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters held the number 1, dominant on streaming and sales while gaining on the radio, while I think it's probably going to lose the top spot next week courtesy of Sabrina Carpenter, probably to Tears. I can't be all that surprised that it's holding sway, at least for this long, and that it's comfortably over Ordinary by Alex Warren at this point, at number 2. Still dominant on the radio, but it may have finally peaked, and it just doesn't have enough marginal strength across sales gains or streaming to really make a proper move. And what do you know, that's pretty much the exact same for What I Want by Morgan Wallen featuring Tate McRae at number 3. The radio is stagnant, we all know why, and yet that's probably all it has to save it from being overtaken due to its streaming losses. Because nipping at its heels are 2 more K-pop Demon Hunter songs, thanks to rock solid streaming. Your Idol at number 4, Soda Pop at number 5. Again, when you are so reliant on one channel, any disruption, like say from an album bomb coming, will probably have an outsized impact, but I've been stunned by how much staying power this movie's soundtrack has had to begin with. We will have to see. What might have slightly better luck is Love Me Not by Raven Lenae, also holding at number 6. It might be getting overtaken on the radio despite some gains there, and the weaker streaming hasn't helped, but it at least has some cross-channel stability. Again, we will have to see. But what will probably get higher, if only just for a time, is our return to the top 10, Man-Child by Sabrina Carpenter at number 7. Looks like someone finally stepped on the gas for the radio promo, even though it lags really hard on streaming. For now. And yet it was thankfully enough to get over Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 8, which is still astoundingly stable on streaming, as it actually saw some radio gains again, and also some gains from our 4th K-pop Demon Hunters song with How It's Done at number 9. Again, just on streaming, I'm imagining it's probably going to fall back hard with the album bomb. I'm still thoroughly annoyed the music industry allowed any of this to happen to begin with. And to round out our top 10, Die With a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars is somehow back at number 10 because the radio just is not giving up on this one. At least at this point. They really should. And speaking of which, our losers and dropouts here, and we actually have some pretty major ones with the latter category, with both I Had Some Help by Post Malone and Morgan Wallen finally exiting and taking Nokia by Drake with it. Very telling how this is the song that's getting turfed while so many other stagnant songs stick around from a year prior to it. But we also had some tracks that are finally getting pushed to recurrency as Billboard sluggishly enforces their own rules. So Rather Lie by Playboi Carti and The Weeknd is now gone, along with Hard Fought Hallelujah by Brandon Lake. Both of them might just scrape onto the bottom of the year-end list for 2025. We will have to see. Now for our losers. Would it surprise you if the story here is that it's a bunch of newer songs not really being given a proper push? Not that I'm complaining to see Miami by Morgan Wallen featuring Lil Wayne and Rick Ross pushed down to 65, or Eternity by Alex Warren not living up to its title at 83, or Which One by Drake and Central C at 84, but it's still concerning that Outside by Cardi B is not living up to any serious push at 74, or Ring 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 by Tyler the Creator is getting dumped at 96, or even So Far So Fake by Pierce the Veil can't sustain any virality at 79. I don't really care for the song, but again, kind of disappointing. But okay, what's filling in the gaps? well, looking at our returns and gains, very little. The majority tied to album pushes that I just don't see lasting for what's coming next week. For the former group, it is awesome that 12 to 12 by Somber roared back to 60, but it came with Gnarly by Cat's Eye at 98. That's not a prize. Meanwhile, in our gains, the biggest winner is probably BigXThaPlug, with All the Way with Bailey Zimmerman seeing a nice boost to 22, and Hell at Night with Ella Langley riding to 35, along with Mariah The Scientist seeing some nice movement with Is It a Crime with Caliucci's up to 59. Finally, WGFT by Gunna got a bump to 81, because apparently the Hot 100 wasn't content with its standard level of mediocrity. I guess it figures, especially this year. But now on to a healthy list of new arrivals. Let's see if any of them have sustainability into next week, and unfortunately we have to start with number 92, Holy Water by Marshmello and Jelly Roll.
Two tears for the soul departed. Pour out a little holy water. We still slowly feel what you feel, yeah, yeah. Two tears for the soul departed. Pour out a little holy water.
Oh, don't act so surprised. You knew this was just a matter of time when two of the most mercenary feature merchants would team up. The question was going to be whether or not the fusion would be just mono-genre bland to the point of breaking space-time, or we would have some brand new atrocity in order to dissect. And what we got feels like somehow less than both of these things. Although Marshmello's overcompression, especially on Jelly Roll's vocal leads, it is about the worst thing possible for his nasal drawl, especially when he starts bleeding on the hook, that I guess maybe passes as a drop. It's not like Marshmello really adds much to the melody around the fizzy percussion, the snap, and the washed out guitars and the keys. But what's really jarring about this song is when you look at the lyrics, this is intended to be a memorial to a friend who left and then died to ambiguous circumstances. How does this remotely fit a fusion with Marshmello at all? It starts making sense why he might try to downplay his presence, but he shouldn't be here to begin with. Coupled with the song barely running over 2 minutes, where you'd think for any sort of broader commemoration, you might have some actual length to intensify the gravitas. Yeah, you know what? No mincing words. This is crap, a memorial that should be forgotten, and fast. Number 91, Lover Girl by Laufey.
I'm working overtime to have you in my world. Oh, what a curse it is to be a lover girl.
And now we've entered the short list of songs from albums that I do want to cover, maybe at some point, but I'm trying to churn through my schedule to get to. I do think it's cool that Laufey is big enough to chart off of that album traction outside of covering a holiday standard, so what did we actually get with this? Well, immediately the supple and impeccably balanced throwback bossa nova production, coming in with the hand claps and the jaunty touches. It is tasteful damn near to a fault, where Laufey is distinctly exasperated that she's fallen head over heels in love, become the sort of earnest and clingy type that she herself might actually tease. And I do appreciate that nimble balance she's attempting here. Laufey's throwback influences can be a narrow tightrope when that sort of specific coding has a certain cultural signifier. A line like, "the independent lady in me's nowhere to be found," that could definitely be taken a type of way. So the canny disavowal and more worldly framing, while not denying her feelings, it's cute. At the same time, I'm not really sure it goes beyond cute for me, and some of that comes down to Laufey's delivery, where her slightly deeper register creates a slightly sharper, more adult contrast. Calling herself a lover girl feels a bit of a stretch when she carries herself with more poise and maturity, and I gotta be honest, it doesn't really fit. But it's good enough. Not sure it's enough to really get me to check out that album. If it doesn't get added to my schedule, we'll have to see. Number 88, Sacrifice by Mariah The Scientist.
For my broken heart, yeah, I need someone to help. Tell me I'm falling for someone who'll save me from myself.
And And now for our second case, where I have even less of an excuse, because I've actually really liked what Mariah The Scientist has been pushing with the singles that have charted, and I really do feel bad for her getting caught up in all the nonsense coming out of the Young Thug jail call leaks, especially right around her album cycle. That's not fair, and I really don't want to bring it up much around this, except that this new song is arguably the most straightforward love song she's pushed so far. We're against the watery, 90s inspired keys with a really nice melodic progression and that softer patter of percussion. She confesses the sort of love that's helped her move past heartbreak and all the loneliness that's come with her sitting with her feelings when her partner's been away, for which Young Thug was in his time in jail. She commits to selling that pathos so well that it's actively exasperating that Young Thug's been grabbing the headlines for too much stupid shit that he said, and that once again, that her vocal mixing sounds weirdly tinny and metallic. I'm not sure if this is a question of stylistic choice or trying to cover up some mistakes, but if it's the latter, letting some of the imperfections show on record would only increase the song's power for me. But even with that, might be my favorite of her charting solo hits to date, even if it does feel a bit short. Really nice work. Very good song. Check it out. Number 82, Man I Need by Olivia Dean.
I kinda like it when you call me wonderful. Whatever the type of talk it is, come on then. I gotta know you're meant to be the man I need.
Well, about time she crossed over here. For those of you who don't know, Olivia Dean is a UK-based neo-soul singer-songwriter who first broke through with the breathy but tastefully slick Throwback and Dive off her 2023 debut, and she's been stringing together charting singles in the UK ever since. Now, this is her first to cross over to the Hot 100, and it's a very different animal than Dive, embracing the 80s R&B watery guitars around the piano with a thicker cushion of vocal multi-tracking, but also opting for a much more restrained, faster patter of fizzy percussion that augments the gently sophisticated flair. I think there's a lot of charm to this mix. And I also like the gently exasperated sentiment of just wanting this guy to talk to her. She's giving every positive signal. She wants to push things further. It's a playful jab in order to make a proper move. And with the sultry edge to Olivia Dean's delivery, even if I might be a sucker for her earlier neo-soul tones, a bit of a throwback to an era I grew up with, this feels more distinct and saturated in its sound with the melodic flourishes. The composition just feels considerably sharper. So yeah, I think it's pretty great. You might not be familiar with her. You should probably change that. Hope this sticks around. Number 73, Different Species by Offset and Gunna.
We going to Greece. We having sex on the boat on the beach. Took off the top so you know it is me. She like my dog, my steez. Beautiful, different little species. Fast, she look like my speed.
Oh yeah, Offset put out an album too. Can you tell I'm struggling to muster the enthusiasm? I don't like having to circle back to Young Thug's nonsense again, but his frustration that Kendrick Lamar wasn't giving him a verse for that thoroughly mediocre and already forgotten 2023 album speaks to the oversaturation of a specific commercial-ready set of collaborators in hip-hop the past couple of years, where none of the verses have ever felt remotely interesting. It just had me look at this song and shrug. It's gonna be brand name porn and women against a watery trap groove, where if there's no immediately mimetic line, you're going to forget this exists in record time. And here, honestly, I think the production might have had some potential. The hi-hat, skitter, and bass had a little bit more interplay against the guitars and the fluttery keys, but Offset's inflexibility in his triplet flow prevents him from doing anything with it, and Gunna is way too limited to be a saving grace. And for the lyrics, I'm sorry, am I the only one kind of skeeved out by them calling these girls a different species because they're so hot? Or that Gunna said he deported them overseas? In this cultural climate? Whatever, it's way too forgettable and mediocre to care about further. Next, number 61, Box Me Up by BigXThaPlug featuring Jelly Roll.
Take my love and hang it out to dry. If I lose you tonight, box me up and bury me alive.
So I know I'm the guy who's giving BigXThaPlug more flowers for his country rap fusion than pretty much anybody else, but if you wanted the most stark argument against it, might have been a song like this, where Jelly Roll used to rap adjacent to country. You'd think he would be a slam dunk, but the compressed auto-tune dumped all over his nasal crooning is so awkward and obtrusive, it kills one of the few songs where the transition between BigXThaPlug's verses and the hook actually feels kind of natural. Granted, the other problem is that of the breakup songs on the album, this is where the content feels the most bog standard and conventional, lacking any of the swerves or subtext that BigXThaPlug can deliver in between the lines, so it feels painfully rote. I can't deny that it largely fits what it's trying to do. If you can lock into this miserable, watery, piano-driven country trap, I imagine it might work for you. But Jelly Roll's presence feels like an obligation, and compared to the rest of the album, Thank God All the Way did way better. I'm gonna skip this. Number 52, Ceremony by Stray Kids.
Hip hip, come. Ceremony.
Funny story, I was going to open up this segment with, I guess we're still trying to make Stray Kids happen. Then I checked through my archive. I literally used the exact same set of words when talking about their last crossover attempt last August. And for a K-pop boy band reliant on attitude and flair, the fact that I don't find them that memorable, that's kind of notable and not good. Anyway, with this, oh my god, what the hell is that hideous grainy synth layered around the bass? Or the oily horn, strings, klaxon fusion that sounds like a DJ Snake leftover drop from a decade ago? All of which seems to be infused into this busy trap progression that seems to have left any actual catchy melody at the door. When the production's so actively hideous, and then the hook relies on a big hip hip hooray shout for another stock hype anthem, then the pre-chorus includes the line, "That ratio got us going worldwide," where all this is considered good karma for them. Yeah, maybe them and nobody else. It's not like they actually figured out to have a crescendo explode over the course of a year. That's one of the things I found so utterly obnoxious about Stray Kids. For all the flexing they have, it's all this staccato sizzle without any stake. I don't remotely buy into this dated mess. If I'd rather listen to K-pop Demon Hunter songs than a long-running K-pop act under their own name, that's an awful sign. It's an utter headache. For the love that's all that's holy, this is a ceremony you can skip. Skip this shit. And finally, number 28, Jealous Type by Doja Cat.
Between two worlds that I just can't decide. Which one is leading me to heaven paradise? Baby, I can't hurt you sure, but I'm the jealous type. I'm the jealous type.
I go back and forth whether or not I believe Doja Cat is over. Her star power certainly isn't matching her peak from a couple of years ago, and given how much she seems to hate her fan base and the industry, I honestly expected her to do way worse than having this as the biggest debut this week. Hell, she was really good on Born Again with Lisa and Ray a couple months back, and that song unfortunately sank like a stone, evidence of 2025. But here we have a track co-produced by Y2K and Jack Antonoff of all people. And man, I'm not sure they brought their A game with this one. With the fractured, lightweight 80s pop of the gated percussion and the horns or guitars largely stuck behind Doja Cat's breathy delivery near the very front of the mix. Compared to the liquid and sensual new disco around her breakthrough, this sounds way too chintzy and compressed to flatter anything, especially when the song feels so abbreviated and selling all this jealousy that Doja Cat outright admits was a bad idea, but she just can't help herself. At least until the second verse, where it seems like it's justified because this dude wanted to go out and not show her off because another girl might be in the picture. I don't know, putting aside that jealousy tends to be one of those emotions that can be a really hard sell in a fun pop song. The pettiness curdles the vibe, maybe going more for R&B could have been better, but then trying to play the hook all sensual and coy alongside her second verse feels so tonally dissonant, it just takes me out of the song. In short, yeah, I don't know about this. If Doja Cat thinks this is her pop moment to get her traction going, I'm not sure there's enough good here to sell it. Yeah, swing and a miss. I'm not going back to it. And that's our week. Man, it's nice when the best and worst fall out pretty easy, even though I've got no expectations any of these songs are going to last long. In the latter group, yes, Ceremony by Stray Kids is going to snatch up that bottom spot, although dishonorable mention, Holy Water by Marshmello and Jelly Roll, it puts up a fight there. Whereas for the best, well, it really felt like more of an R&B neo-soul week for me, because Man I Need by Olivia Dean is gonna get that top spot, just edging out Sacrifice by Mariah The Scientist. And speaking of edging, next week we got Sabrina Carpenter and Man's Best Friend, and if you thought that sex line that I had was bad, get ready for the album bomb coming. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.